Well, hi, I'm Alan Foley for Queensberry TV. It's the opening show of the Queensberry Boxing League's 2016 season, and tonight, our main event sponsor for the evening is London's coolest new musical, All or Nothing. And I'm very, very lucky to be joined by the writer and also the star of the new musical that hits London this April, Carol Harrison. How are you doing, Carol?
I'm doing really well, thank you, Alan. It's been a great night, hasn't it? It's been fantastic.
The action's been fantastic. I mean, there's some great knockouts, and I know that, growing up in the East End, you're a boxing fan yourself.
Yeah, I'm a real fan of the fight game. I did grow up with it, and I knew Jimmy Tibbs and the Black Lion, and that's when I met Dean Powell, who as sponsors of tonight, which is like another story, we've dedicated the show to, and also Lewis Pinto, who fought with you. So yes, I'm a great fan of the fight game. In fact, I met Dean because I was writing a series about it. So
I remember you said we spoke about it off camera, and you were writing a boxing series, and that's how you sort of really got to know some of the guys within the boxing scene.
Yeah, I did. I mean, obviously, I grew up with a lot of them as well. But when I wanted to do this, obviously, I just said, can I come in and rack your brain? And they gave me everything, so that was great. But tonight was a fantastic night. Obviously, it's about the fight game. It's about the charity that we're talking about, which is the survivors of bereavement from suicide, because both of these great guys we've just talked about took their own lives, which is really terribly sad, and we want to help the charity to always be there when somebody feels that desperate. But also it's a celebration of All or Nothing and the mod musical, and the passion that I have for that I wrote about the guys with the small faces who came from the East End of London as well.
I was going to say, I mean, I'll be 100% honest. I mean, I've heard about the small faces, and it wasn't really till I sort of spoke to yourself, looked online, sort of Wikipedia, and really sort of got to know the whole story, and a really, really fascinating story.
Amazing story.
Where did this sort of connection with the small faces for yourself start?
Well, it's an amazing story, and they came from the same part of London as me, the East End, and my cousin was in a band with Steve Marriott really early on, so I met him when I was about 8 years old, and he was the most charismatic, amazing guy, and obviously went on to become this great icon. And I grew up in that time, the 60s, which is really exciting. It's the celebration of that, and a celebration of mod, actually, because that was about working class people saying, we are stylish, we have our own cool, and we're not going to be like the generation before us. So talking about my generation, that's what I wanted to do, and marry it with this amazing story, especially of Steve Marriott.
It was a real meteoric rise, wasn't it? I mean, they sort of literally, from the start to sort of until the band sort of finished, it was really only about 4 years, but success in that 4 years was incredible.
It was a meteoric rise to fame. It was 4 years, and that was the Small Faces, and Steve Marriott walked out on at its height. But the thing about the Small Faces is they're the most unsung band of the 60s, because if you talk to any musicians or people who are really into music, they say that they were the most influential. And Paul Weller's favourite band was the Small Faces, and his favourite icon was Steve Marriott. He based, the way he dressed, everything on him, because they were the iconic mod band, and he had the most fantastic voice. So I wanted to highlight their talent and their legacy for all the other bands that have gone after them as well, and celebrate, where I come from, theatre and the 60s.
Now, for somebody who's thinking about coming to see the musical, without giving too much away, give us a brief kind of synopsis. I mean, what can people expect when they come and see it?
Well, they'll expect what they expect, I don't know, but what they'll get is a fantastic story. It's a play as well as it's not just like a fluffy musical like some of the 60s musicals are. It's a real roller coaster emotional story through rock and roll, and it's iconic, some of the iconic stories of rock and roll in there.
The sex, the drugs, the rock and roll.
The sex, the drugs, the rock and roll, but also inside understanding the music world of that time, and great music. And so it's got pathos, but it's also got a great amount of humour, and it will get you rocking, it will get you up and dancing, and it is the coolest musical ever.
No, I mean, I know, I love the sort of strapline, the coolest musical ever. For people that want to sort of get involved and want to see it, I mean, how do they get tickets? When's it taking place?
Well, it's taking place from the 31st of March right until the 30th of April, and you can get tickets online from the Vault's website, and I'm sure we can put this up at the end because I can't remember, but the Vault's website, and actually we've sold our first night. The tickets are selling fantastically, so please get your tickets now.
Fantastic. Well, listen, we're really looking forward to seeing the musical, and if it's something that you're interested yourself, I mean, the Small Face is an iconic band out of the East End in the 60s, the story of Steve Marriott and how everything sort of came about. It's happening in London, starting at the end of March, all the way through to the end of April at the Vaults in Waterloo, and if you log on to alornothingthemusical.com, you'll be able to get more information.